in cui Roma aveva Cesare, Virgilio ed Augusto.
Beneath the facade of Italian pride and strength, Benito Mussolini's reign was marked by chilling atrocities and ruthless ambition. As the architect of fascism in Italy, he orchestrated a series of diabolical events that plunged his nation into chaos and left an indelible scar on history. From brutal oppression and violent purges to complicity in the Holocaust, Mussolini's dark legacy reveals the depths of human cruelty in the pursuit of power. But what drove him to such extremes? Stick around as we unravel the shocking truths behind his tyrannical rule. The rise of Benito Mussolini. Imagine a young boy with big dreams and an even bigger temper. Benito Mussolini, a determined and sometimes violent child, would grow up to lead Italy as its dictator. But who was Mussolini before he rose to power? Born into a modest family, Mussolini's mother, Rosa, was a devout Catholic and schoolteacher who ensured the family had a steady income and insisted on regular church attendance. His father, Alessandro, worked as a blacksmith and believed in revolutionary ideals. Young Benito spent hours by his father's side at the forge, absorbing tales of revolutionary leaders like Karl Marx. Despite his admiration for Alessandro, Benito feared his father's strict ways, especially when he used physical punishment to enforce discipline. From a young age, Benito's behavior stood out. He often bullied others and even showed signs of violence, sometimes clashing with classmates and teachers. At just 10 years old, he was expelled from school, not for a prank, but for stabbing another student. Sent away to a boarding school run by monks, Benito felt deeply rejected and isolated, a feeling that may have influenced his personality. Though he was shy, he was also stubborn and aggressive, frequently getting into fights with both students and teachers. He also admitted to knifing a girlfriend in the arm. Meanwhile, he purportedly pinched people at church to make them cry, led gangs of boys on raids of local farmsteads, and eventually became adept at dueling with swords. Years later, Mussolini found a new outlet for his intensity: journalism. Between 1912 and 1914, he edited Avanti, the Socialist Party's newspaper. Mussolini was married twice, to Ida Dalza in 1914 and to his longtime mistress Rachele Guidi 1 year later. Additionally, Mussolini had a number of other mistresses and liaisons. From his first marriage, he had a son, Benito Albino Mussolini. Following Mussolini's second marriage, records of his first marriage and son were destroyed or suppressed, and both wife and son were kept under constant surveillance. Italian authorities sent Ida to an island near Venice, where she died in 1937. Her son was forced into an asylum near Milan, where he died in 1942 at the age of 26. Through his work, he honed his skills and began to see himself as a revolutionary voice. However, his fiery personality and desire to push boundaries soon caused problems. When World War I broke out, Mussolini supported Italy's involvement, clashing with the Socialist Party, which opposed joining the war. In 1914, he was expelled from the party and lost his position at Avanti. Unfazed, Mussolini launched his own newspaper, Il Popolo d'Italia, or the People of Italy, to rally support for the war. Backed by Italian industrialists and foreign governments like Britain and France, who wanted Italy as an ally, Mussolini used his newspaper to build a following. By 1915, he was called to fight in the war. For nearly 2 years, he served as a soldier, experiencing the harsh realities of trench warfare. When an injury forced him to leave the army, he returned with new perspectives. His wartime experience became a powerful tool. He spoke about the unity and nationalism he felt alongside fellow soldiers. Italy was a divided country, and many were disillusioned by the post-war Treaty of Versailles, which left them feeling betrayed. Mussolini's fiery speeches and promises of change resonated with an increasingly restless population. With Italy facing political turmoil, Mussolini saw his chance. He began to craft his vision for a new Italy, one united by strength, pride, and strict leadership. For many Italians, his promises of order and greatness were tempting. But his journey from outspoken journalist to dictator had only just begun. Italy's fascist transformation. Yet the seeds of his vision had only just taken root. As Italy plunged deeper into chaos, Mussolini's rhetoric grew louder, positioning him as the figure who could restore strength and unity to a fractured nation. In the turbulent years after World War I, Italy faced political instability and economic hardship, creating widespread frustration among its people. Amidst this turmoil, Benito Mussolini emerged, promoting a fierce nationalist agenda. Disillusioned Italians, desperate for stability, were drawn to his promises, sparking the rise of fascism. In 1919, Mussolini founded the Fascist Party, claiming he would end Italy's chaotic government. With 5 different governments between 1919 and 1922, many lost faith in their leaders. Mussolini vowed to eradicate corruption and restore national pride, resonating with the public by offering a third way that rejected liberalism and Bolshevism. In 1921, King Victor Emmanuel III dissolved parliament amid widespread violence, allowing Mussolini's fascist party to gain control. Mussolini envisioned a powerful, totalitarian state, demanding that Italians submit entirely to the regime. His fascist ideology extended beyond politics, reaching into culture and society and shaping every aspect of individual lives. He sought to create a new fascist man who would promote state authority. The Fascist Party's power was bolstered by the Black Shirts, a paramilitary group enforcing fascist ideas through intimidation and violence. These squads targeted socialist and communist centers, destroying their offices and press. Many feared a communist uprising, and the fascists exploited this anxiety, positioning themselves as defenders against the perceived threat and gaining support from industrialists and landowners. Mussolini was not just a political leader, he was a captivating orator. His speeches and public appearances cultivated a cult-like following, with Italians viewing him as a visionary capable of restoring Italy's greatness. His charisma instilled loyalty, creating a unique bond between him and the populace. As Mussolini's influence grew, he unified Italians under a banner of national pride, promising to guide them toward a glorious future. His powerful message and tactics secured his position, changing Italy's trajectory toward totalitarian rule. The people, captivated by his vision, placed their faith in him, unaware of the devastating consequences that would follow. Building on this foundation of loyalty and fervor, marching toward dictatorship. Mussolini's rise to power in Italy became an intense, calculated process filled with manipulation, strategic alliances, and an iron grip on Italian society. By 1922, Mussolini and his fascist party saw an opportunity to seize control, planning a symbolic march on Rome on October 28th of that year. They aimed to make a show of strength, presenting their movement as an unstoppable force to the Italian people. In reality, this march wasn't as formidable as Mussolini would later claim. Despite talk of 100,000 fascists marching on the city, only 20,000 actually participated. They remained on the outskirts, waiting for orders that never came. Ultimately, it was the looming threat of force rather than an actual coup that allowed Mussolini to assume power. When Prime Minister Luigi Facta attempted to declare a state of siege, King Victor Emmanuel III overruled him, effectively granting him control without a single shot fired. Once Mussolini became prime minister, he set about systematically dismantling Italy's democratic institutions. Initially, he appeared to work within the political system, masking his true intentions. Behind this facade, however, he was laying the groundwork for a totalitarian state. In 1924, his party's hold on power strengthened when a rigged election gave the fascists a landslide victory. This event, however, was overshadowed by the assassination of socialist leader Giacomo Matteotti, a fierce critic of fascist methods. The brutal murder sent shockwaves through Italy, but Mussolini used the ensuing crisis to present himself as the only person capable of restoring order. In the following years, Mussolini's control over Italy tightened. The Acerbo Law of 1923 had already slanted the electoral system in favor of the fascists, but between 1925 and 1926, a series of laws were passed that fully dissolved any remaining opposition. Freedom of the press was abolished, all other political parties were banned, and the OVRA, a secret police force, was established to track down and eliminate dissent. Thousands of political opponents were arrested or exiled, and any remaining critics were silenced. Education was overhauled to teach fascist ideology, and the media became a propaganda tool, glorifying Mussolini and censoring opposing voices. Mussolini's cult of personality became central to his dictatorship. Propaganda portrayed him as a powerful, almost superhuman leader, with slogans like, "Mussolini is always right." This personality cult helped him maintain control over Italy, transforming the country into a police state where individual freedoms were trampled and the state's will reigned supreme. By 1929, he had even gained the support of the Catholic Church through the Lateran Treaty, which recognized Vatican City as an independent state and granted the Church certain privileges. His economic policies aimed at self-sufficiency through large public works projects, which, while symbolizing the regime's power, ultimately failed to make Italy truly independent from foreign trade. Despite the efforts to control every aspect of Italian life, the economy remained fragile, and Mussolini's rule relied heavily on propaganda and repression. Under his regime, political opponents faced death or imprisonment. Freedom was quashed, and the fascist state dictated the lives of every Italian until the regime's eventual collapse. Amid this oppressive atmosphere, where dissent was met with severe punishment, the regime took an even darker turn, leading to the enforcement of racial laws that would devastate the Jewish community. The dark impact of racial laws. During World War II, Italy faced a grim shift as Mussolini's government enforced racial laws that deeply affected the Jewish population. On November 17, 1938, the racial laws were officially enacted. Though they targeted various groups, including Jews, Romani people, and those with disabilities, the Jewish community bore the brunt of these regulations. This marked a significant turning point for over 46,000 Italian Jews, as their rights, jobs, education, and social lives became severely restricted. The very first and most significant law was the Regio Decreto, 17 November 1938. It stripped Italian Jews of their civil rights and banned books written by Jewish authors. Jews were excluded from public offices and higher education, forcing them into the shadows of society. Additional laws took away their assets, restricted their travel, and even led to their confinement in internal exile, similar to political prisoners. Before this dark period, the Jewish community had enjoyed relative freedom and integration in Italy. However, as Mussolini sought closer ties with Adolf Hitler's Germany, a shocking transformation occurred. The fascist regime's adoption of anti-Semitic policies aligned Italy with Nazi Germany's hatred of Jews, This shift unleashed a wave of suffering, dramatically altering the lives of countless families. The racial laws began to unfold in the summer and autumn of 1938. The Manifesto of Race, published in July, falsely proclaimed a pure Italian race and labeled Jews as foreigners. This pseudo-scientific propaganda paved the way for future legal persecution. By September 1938, the Italian government had passed laws barring Jews from public schools and universities, prohibiting them from government jobs, and excluding them from military service. These laws devastated the professional lives of many Jews who suddenly found themselves banned from owning or managing businesses with more than 100 employees. The economic impact was immediate. Many lost their livelihoods overnight. The most personal and profound effects were felt in everyday social life. Marriages between Jews and non-Jews were forbidden, severing relationships and isolating the Jewish community. This once integrated group, essential to Italy's cultural fabric, suddenly became outsiders in their own country. Propaganda worked relentlessly to reinforce these racial laws. Newspapers, radio broadcasts, and films depicted Jews as enemies of the Italian race, fueling widespread prejudice and hatred. Even children's textbooks contained derogatory references to Jews, spreading animosity from a young age. As the laws were enforced, fear and uncertainty grew among Italian Jews. Families were torn apart, careers ruined, and a pervasive sense of betrayal swept through a community that once felt secure in its Italian identity. As World War II continued, Italy's entanglement with Nazi Germany worsened the situation. In 1943, following Italy's surrender and German occupation, the persecution intensified. Italian Jews faced deportations to concentration camps, and approximately 8,000 perished in the Holocaust, a tragic outcome of the fascist regime's embrace of Nazi ideology. Italian concentration camps. When we think about the horrors of World War II, we often focus on the Nazi concentration camps. However, the Italian concentration camps also tell a grim story of human suffering. These camps, set up in areas controlled by fascist Italy, reveal a brutal side of history that is often overlooked. The roots of these camps can be traced back to the late 1930s. After Italy's military campaigns in North Africa and the Balkans, leaders like Benito Mussolini aimed to expand their empire. This ambition led to the establishment of camps, designed not just to control local populations, but to enforce harsh racial laws and political agendas. Unlike the Nazi extermination camps, Italian camps were primarily for internment and forced labor. However, this did not make them any less cruel. In Libya, these camps were set up to crush local resistance. The camp at El Agheila, established in 1930, became infamous for its inhumane conditions. Men, women, and children were forced into labor, facing starvation and disease. Sanitation was nearly non-existent, and medical care was a distant dream. The death toll was shocking, with estimates suggesting tens of thousands lost their lives, primarily due to malnutrition and illness. In the Dodecanese Islands, including Rhodes, Italian fascists established camps for political prisoners and Jews, especially after the racial laws of 1938. The camp on Rhodes became a holding center for Jews before they were deported to extermination camps. Though conditions here were not as deadly as in Libya, they were still terrible. Overcrowding, inadequate food, and poor hygiene broke the spirits of those trapped inside. The Italian concentration camps operated under a strict system of control. Camp authorities wielded absolute power over inmates, often punishing them arbitrarily and harshly. Barbed wire and watchtowers surrounded these camps, making escape nearly impossible. They were not just physical prisons, they were also tools of psychological warfare meant to crush the will of those deemed enemies of the fascist regime. One striking aspect of these camps is their relative obscurity in history. While the Holocaust and Nazi atrocities are well documented, the Italian camps have remained largely in the shadows. This lack of awareness, both in Italy and around the world, has created a significant blind spot in our understanding of the full extent of fascist brutality during World War II. The power of propaganda in fascist Italy. As we delve deeper into this dark chapter of history, it becomes clear that Italy under Benito Mussolini was not just a place of power, it was a theater of illusion. The regime used propaganda like a skilled magician, crafting an elaborate narrative that shaped public opinion and embedded fascist ideology into daily life. This wasn't just about spreading ideas, it was about controlling minds and hearts. Imagine living in a society where every newspaper, radio broadcast, and film echoed the same powerful message. That was life in Mussolini's Italy. In the early 1920s, Mussolini recognized that the media could make or break a regime. By 1935, he took personal control of the Ministry of Press and Propaganda, ensuring that every word spoken, printed, or shown was in line with fascist ideals. This centralized control meant that information was filtered and shaped, creating a glorified image of Mussolini as an infallible leader. Newspapers like Il Popolo d'Italia, founded by Mussolini, and the popular Corriere della Sera were pivotal in this campaign. They painted Mussolini as a champion of the Italian people, an infallible figure. The regime was especially adept at using modern technology to reach its audience. Radio became a crucial tool, broadcasting Mussolini's speeches across the country. His powerful voice became a constant in the lives of Italians, shaping their perception and creating a near-mythical status around him. The cinema, too, was harnessed for propaganda. Films were not merely for entertainment, they were tools of indoctrination, often depicting fascist Italy as a powerful, united nation. This portrayal of strength was crucial in maintaining control and boosting national pride. Propaganda didn't stop at the media. It invaded cultural and artistic realms. Grand public events, parades, and exhibitions were staged to showcase the regime's power and success. One notable example was the Mostra della Rivoluzione Fascista, an exhibition held in 1932 to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the fascist march on Rome. It glorified the regime's achievements, rewriting history to fit their narrative. Education was another battleground for propaganda. The fascist regime revamped the educational system, embedding fascist ideology in the curriculum. Textbooks were rewritten to glorify the regime and vilify its enemies. Children were indoctrinated from a young age through organizations like Opera Nazionale Balilla, which combined physical training with fascist lessons. Propaganda also served to demonize the regime's enemies. Socialists, communists, and later Jews were frequently portrayed as threats, inciting fear and hatred. This culture of fear became a tool for control, where dissent was seen as treachery. The effectiveness of fascist propaganda in Italy was staggering. It created a cult of personality around Mussolini, elevating him to a near-divine status. The Italian people were constantly bombarded with images and messages that reinforced fascist values, shaping public opinion and stifling dissent. In this environment, truth became a malleable concept, easily shaped by the regime's needs. This manipulation of reality laid the groundwork for Italy's wartime decisions, as the desire for power and glory became entangled with the regime's dark ambitions. Italy's War Saga. Italy's story in World War II is one of ambition, mistakes, and ultimate failure. Under Benito Mussolini, Italy sought to become a powerful nation in Europe. However, this dream led to disaster. Italy joined forces with Nazi Germany, hoping to share in its victories. Mussolini's alliance with Hitler solidified in the Pact of Steel in 1939, which seemed strategic, but it also tied Italy's fate to the Nazis. On June 10, 1940, Italy declared war on Britain and France. Mussolini aimed to grab his share of power. However, his initial military efforts were not successful. The invasion of Greece in October 1940 was supposed to be a quick victory, but turned into a shameful defeat, requiring German help. Italian forces faced tough challenges in North Africa as well, struggling against British troops and losing many soldiers and equipment. This situation led to the need for German troops under General Erwin Rommel to assist their Italian allies. Several problems plagued the Italian military. They had outdated equipment, insufficient training, and poor leadership. Despite these challenges, Italian troops fought on multiple fronts, including alongside Germans on the Eastern Front and in the Balkans. The Italian Navy, known as Regia Marina, played a key role in the Mediterranean, participating in significant battles like the Battle of Cape Matapan in 1941. However, the fleet faced many difficulties, including a lack of fuel and air support, limiting its effectiveness. In 1943, everything changed. After the Allies landed in Sicily and bombed Italian cities relentlessly, the Italian people began to lose faith in Mussolini. On July 25, 1943, he was arrested. The new government sought peace, leading to Italy's surrender on September 8, 1943, as they switched sides to join the Allies against Germany. But this did not end Italy's troubles. Germany quickly took over northern Italy, freeing Mussolini and setting up a puppet government, the Italian Social Republic. This sparked a brutal civil war. Italian partisans, supported by the Allies, fought against Mussolini's loyalists and their German allies. The fighting spread across cities like Rome, Florence, and Bologna, turning them into battlefields. The Allies faced slow progress due to challenging terrain and fierce German resistance. The war left Italy scarred, with cities in ruins and many civilians dead. Italy's experience in World War II was a painful journey from seeking power to facing defeat. The alliance with Nazi Germany was a grave mistake that dragged the nation into a war it was not prepared for. Afterward, Italy was politically split, economically ruined, and socially traumatized. This period marked the end of Mussolini's regime and a long road to recovery. Fall of Mussolini's dictatorship amidst the Holocaust. Amidst this turmoil, the establishment of the Italian Social Republic in 1943 marked a troubling era in history. This regime allied with Nazi Germany during World War II, leading to Italy's significant involvement in the Holocaust. Benito Mussolini, Italy's dictator, led this regime after German forces rescued him from imprisonment, showcasing the desperate state of fascism in Italy. After Italy surrendered to the Allied forces, German troops occupied northern and central Italy, giving rise to the Italian Social Republic, often called the Salo Republic. From 1943 to 1945, it relied heavily on Nazi Germany and was committed to prolonging the war. Under Mussolini's weak leadership, the Republic became a puppet for Nazi policies. One of the most horrifying aspects of the Italian Social Republic was its participation in the Holocaust. Anti-Semitic laws existed prior to this period, but the regime actively persecuted and deported Jews. Approximately 8,000 Jews from this region were sent to Nazi concentration camps, with the Italian police and fascist militias facilitating these deportations. A notable event occurred on October 16, 1943, when over 1,000 Jews were arrested in Rome and sent to Auschwitz, demonstrating the regime's dark complicity in the Nazis' final solution. The regime also saw increased violence against political dissidents and partisans. The infamous Black Brigades instilled terror in anyone deemed an enemy of the state, employing torture and summary executions. This climate of fear prevailed during the war's final years, as Mussolini struggled to maintain authority and became a puppet under German control. As the war progressed, the Italian Social Republic faced strong opposition from organized partisan groups supported by the Allies. By April 1945, the Allies advanced into northern Italy, and the partisans rose up. Mussolini attempted to flee to Switzerland, but was captured and executed by Italian partisans. His execution symbolized the end of fascist rule and marked a significant rejection of his oppressive regime. After the war, Italy grappled with addressing fascist atrocities. The Verona trial in 1945 put key fascists on trial, leading to some executions, but lighter sentences for others. Many officials escaped punishment, continuing to influence Italian politics. As the Cold War shifted focus away from past crimes, discussions about fascism were often suppressed. However, Italy gradually began to confront its fascist past, creating memorials and museums to educate future generations. April 25th, the anniversary of Italy's liberation, is now a national holiday, celebrating the end of fascism and Nazi occupation. Reflecting on this dark period reveals the profound impact of totalitarian rule on the human experience.